Hey there internets, I'm Michael and this is Toucan Play That Game, and today we are finishing our look at Kemet Seti. Now if you haven't done so already, please do check out my previous videos on this as well as my previous videos on Kemet. In this video you'll be able to find out my thoughts on the different modules of the expansion, but if you want to know my thoughts on the game of Kemet overall, you will need to watch the previous videos. So let's talk a bit about what Kemet Seti is. Well, as I've already gone through in the other videos, it is an expansion to the game of Kemet, which I do enjoy, and it adds 5 different modules. Now, the way these modules interact, I don't think makes any difference. So I don't think there's a case of, well, only use this module if you're using this module or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is review each module separately, so you can find out my different thoughts on those. And then at the end of the video, I'll give my thoughts on the expansion as a whole. Now, let's talk first about the first expansion. And that is, of course, the little black pyramids and the black power tiles. This is fantastic. I have to say, I love it. For what an expansion should do, in my opinion, is not change a game hugely. It's just to breathe new life into a game to increase the longevity and replayability of that game. And these black pyramids and power tiles do that. It exponentially increases the number of combinations you can do with those power tiles, and it just increases your number of choices and number of options and makes it a more interesting game. So with regards to these pyramids, I think they are a great inclusion in the game. Of course, as with the base game, component-wise and artwork-wise, we are seeing good quality on the dice and on the cardboard for the powers. So that is all good. So I can't really say anything bad about that. That is a fantastic addition in this expansion. So of course, this is Toucan Play That Game. And how does this first module of the black pyramids affect the game? Well, it doesn't make any difference how many people you are using, really. The same way as with normal Kemet, it's not affected by number of players having these pyramids. Okay, there's less fighting over the power tiles with fewer players, but the same additional opportunities you have with larger number of players is still there with fewer numbers of players. So I still think this is a great addition to the game for 2 players. Let's talk next about the second module. Now, this module is the dawn phase, and this is where they have changed the way in which you're selecting the player order. Now, I can kind of see why it's been done, but to be honest, I find it just slows the game down a lot. It does help you cycle through your battle cards quicker, but I think that's a bad thing, because in many ways you're just kind of using this to get rid of the ones you're less interested in, just so you can get the ones you really want back. This is not a module I would actually choose to use. I think it doesn't add to the game. It just makes it feel longer and clumsier and drags it out. So I don't really know why they did this. I don't feel it adds much, and I recommend not to use it. So how does this new phase affect for 2 players? Well, it's the same whether it's 2 players or more, really. It doesn't make any difference. Then on to the third module. So the third module is the Path to Seti. Now, my first issue with this, well actually no, let's start with the good things. This path, really nice, good cardboard, as you would expect from the Kemet game. Artwork, all very nice. My issue with this is this path has to be set up with the tiles in a specific order. And they're double-sided tiles, okay, fair enough, so you can change, gives a bit of more variation to that path. That I think is great. But it's this whole thing of they have to be in a specific order. And it's really difficult to tell what that order should be. all it would have taken is for them to put like numbers or even something within the artwork that fits for the artwork that makes it 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'd be able to set this up so much quicker, so much easier. And that's really frustrating because it's such a simple change they could have done. But otherwise, of course, this is good quality, nice artwork on here. And of course, this comes with miniatures. So these are the same kind of plastic as the main units from original Kemet. They are nice. They all have kind of a slightly different feel and stuff. I'm not sure why they've bothered to do the different shaped bases, but it doesn't detract anything. And yeah, they're reasonable quality. Now, with regards to actually using this path, it does add an extra interest, an extra kind of idea to the game, something extra to do. But it also slows the game down a lot because you've got that extra choices and decisions you're making. And I don't know, the plays I have done with this, I did not feel it enhanced the game in any way, really. Okay, there was the odd bit where it meant, oh, if I do this move here on the path, then I'll be able to do this in this battle, etc. But it just changed some of the decisions. It didn't really enhance the game. There's, I don't know, the path, it's just this extra little thing happening. If you manage to get the priests built up and out, that is good. And the more players you have, the more likely that seems to be that you will get more progression happening on the path, more getting up, returning will happen with more players more often. But with a small player game, with 2 people, and of course this is Toucan play that game, it really doesn't add anything. You can just about get to the end maybe by the time the game is over. And so you don't really get the benefit of the priests building up in power. So, of course, when we're talking about this path to Seti, I also have to mention about the fact that it changes a lot how many players you are playing with in this. And of course, this being Toucan play that game, the focus should be on 2 players. Now, as I already said, in a longer game, you're able to get up the path more. But as well as that, you have less competition on that path with a 2-player game because you've got lots of different paths, and of course they're only refilling at the end of the day. But when you've only got 2 people, there's only one other person taking stuff. Whereas if you're doing a 5-player game, you'll find that those options of taking stuff and it refilling and it changing over the course of the game is much more. The path to Seti works well, really well, for a 5-player game. But for a 2-player game, it just falls so flat. So, kind of my view on this is it's nice and interesting for large players, less so for 2 players. I can kind of live with it or without it. Will I be including it in future plays? I think... I honestly, I don't really know. And that's kind of the problem with this. It has such limited impact that it's kind of, well, I don't mind it being there, but I don't mind it not being there, and the game will flow quicker if it's not there. So for the most part, I probably wouldn't include this, especially playing 2-player. And that's the majority of my playing of it. And then the 4th module is a rule. So I don't actually have anything to show you because there's no components, no artwork. And all this rule does is make it so that you can win at the start of your action rather than at the end of the day phase. Do I like this rule? Well, it's an okay rule if you choose to use it. I have found that it kind of speeds the game up very slightly because it means that when you're doing the rounds, you can't go, oh, all right, well, I've got 3 actions left to take a victory point away from them to stop them winning. It's, I have to do it this action. So it kind of makes it an almost sudden death feel to the game. but I think I prefer the original ruling, and I think I will choose to play the original ruling. Now, with regards to this being included in the expansion, it was just a rule. It doesn't feel like it should be in the expansion. It feels like it should have been an FAQ or a rules amendment document or something like that, just given to everyone who has Kemet online for free, not included as part of an expansion and calling it a module, making it seem like it's more than it actually is. What I would also say is that that rule works better with more people, because as I said, when you're playing 2-player, it's one action to try and stop that person winning. But if you're playing a 5-player game, there's still 4 actions that can happen. Okay, they're distributed amongst different people, but that's 4 actions that can happen to stop that player winning. And you don't get that in a 2-player. It's one action. It just makes it a sudden death. Right, that's it. He's got to 8 first. You have one turn to try and stop him winning. So it just becomes a race to 8 and less tactical in that way. And so I'm not keen on it. And then the final thing to talk about is the 5th module. Now, this introduces the new battle cards and the new divine intervention cards. Does it make any difference the number of players you are using for these? No. Does it change the game hugely? No, it just adds a few more options and makes the game slightly more interesting. These are a no-brainer to include in every game you play of Kemet, because it just adds more variation and more interest to the game, and doesn't add a huge amount of complexity. Even playing with new people, I would say to include these. So now let's talk about the expansion as a whole. And of course, you've probably noticed that a lot of the modules I have not spoken highly of. In fact, the only module I really like in this is those black pyramids and the new monsters. And I think if it had just been those and a smaller price point, I would be happier with it as an expansion. Now, do I feel this is a must-have for people who have Kemet? No, in no way is this a must-have. Kemet is a great game, and this is not needed to play it. Would I say it's a good to have? Well, you get it. If you get this, you'll add those black pyramids. That is a given. You'll add the new battle cards and the new divine intervention cards. That's a given. But then the other 3 modules, well, one of them's a rule, which I don't even think is a very good rule. And then the other one is just changing the way you select player, and it just drags the game down. So I would say those 2 you can kind of just write straight off. And then you've got the path to Seti. Sometimes play with it, sometimes don't. I would say only play with it if you've got 3 or more people. Actually, scrap that, 4 or more, I would reckon. And that's kind of my final thoughts. So obviously I hope this has been helpful to you. I mean, I would say, would I still buy this? I really love Kemet and I love what the black pyramids do, so I would still buy this. I do feel it should not cost as much, and I do feel you should try it if you can, and if you can't, then I hope that this has at least given you some more information to help base your own opinion on whether or not you should get this expansion. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope you will watch the rest of the videos in this series as well as the rest of the videos on the channel, and of course subscribe to the channel and share the channel with your friends and family. And as always, thanks for watching and bye for now.